welcome to another program of Speak Up Tampa Bay, Speak Up Presents. Tonight we have with us, we're going to be talking about a status report on women, and we have with us Susan Leisner, who's the chair of the Hillsborough County Commission on the Status of Women. Welcome, Susan. I'm glad you could make it.
Thank you.
And Diana Kyle, who's the director of the Local Initiatives with an S support group, which is doing a lot of things for women in town, so I'm really glad you're here. Susan, talk to me about the Hillsborough County Commission on the Status of Women and what it does.
Well, we were formed by a resolution of the county about a year ago, last May, and they decided there was a Commission on the Status of Women in Hillsborough County back in the 70s, but it was disbanded, and there has not been one for many years. But the County Commission voted to establish one to be an advisory group to the county commissioners. And we have 13 members. We've just been in existence for about a year now. Each commissioner on the county commissioner appoints a woman. So we have 7 members appointed through the county commission, and those would be Margaret Matthews, myself, Cheryl Holly, Carla Bowling, Luella Carrington, Simone Bearfield, and Chris Frank. And then we have 5 members who are appointed by specific organizations in Tampa. We have the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, that would be A.J. Jemison, the Center for Women, Beth McKay, the League of Women Voters, Alex Famari, the Spring, Kathy Capo-Stone, the Hispanic Professional Women's Association, Norma Cano Alvarez, and the Tampa Urban League, Joanna Tokley. And we started meeting last June, and our first problem was trying to all agree on what issues we would address, because everyone had their favorite issues: employment, discrimination, housing, healthcare, childcare, especially transportation. All these things affect women, and especially poorer women. So we narrowed it down to 4 major topics, which are barriers to employment, affordable housing, healthcare, and childcare. And we decided to address these issues, we would hold a series of workshops. And we held our first workshop last December, and that was on barriers to employment. And we have government agencies and nonprofits attend and talk about the problems that women have in gaining useful employment that pays enough to help them support their children, because a lot of these women are, of course, single heads of household. And we finished that workshop, scheduled another workshop for affordable housing, which we held last month. But then we realized we had so much information that we needed somehow to condense it and make it meaningful so that we could advise the county commission if there was some way that the county could help women in these areas. So to that end, we have a budget of $10,000. We have decided to give stipends out, grants, to the first one is University of South Florida, to help us condense this information and make it meaningful. So we have our first grant went to the USF. Dr. Meg Greenbaum out there and her intern are helping us on the affordable housing workshop. And as we go forward, we hope we will get some useful reports out of these workshops. The workshops have been well attended by the agencies and the nonprofits, not so much by the public, because I don't think they know who we are yet, that they can come out and speak to us. But they've been exceedingly useful by bringing all these agencies and nonprofits together, because a lot of them don't talk to each other. They all have their own different programs, and they're very busy with their programs. They don't see the big picture and see where they can help each other. So it's been very useful in that regard.
What did you get out of the first seminar on the barriers to employment that still exist? You're focusing on Hillsborough County,
yes.
Period. So we're not talking about San Francisco.
No. So
okay.
I mean,
So
some of the things are very obvious. It's always childcare and transportation, 2 major problems.
So on their end, they can't get to the job that may be offered to them.
Yes. Then we heard some other interesting things that I didn't realize. 2 major problems with finding work nowadays are the FDLE background checks and credit checks. A lot of even call centers are doing credit checks on you. So here you have bad credit because you don't have a job, and yet you can't get a job because you have bad credit. So you're going in a circle. And then we've also heard about women who had been involved in domestic violence and maybe had attacked their husband, have a criminal background, you know, even though it's minor, will stop them, for example, from working in a nursing home. You cannot get a job in a nursing home, even a low-paying job if you have, you know,
But domestic violence is a complicated one because
it's
people
very
charge
complicated. That's
each
right,
other,
they charge each other.
Yeah.
So you have women who may be innocent victims who have been in court on domestic violence charges and can't get a job. So those were two that were unusual, that I didn't know about, and I think that most of the public doesn't know about, especially the credit checks.
Well, the credit check's an interesting new add-on that they've done, because no matter where you work today, they want to make sure that one of the things they know is that the person more likely, apparently, or they're to steal, to do theft inside, may be somebody who's in a credit problem, has a credit problem.
Yes.
So what they're trying to do is just avoid hiring somebody who that might be the case. And I don't know what the odds are, though, but it probably is higher than someone who hadn't been previously arrested or charged or anything. That's
but
why
you can
they do it.
imagine a single mother that might not have the best credit in the world, who's been through a divorce.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
absolutely anybody who's been through a divorce has gone through bad credit.
Yes.
I don't know anybody who has.
That's right. So those were two that were, you know, shocking.
And a lot of times not their fault. They've got somebody who says, "Yes, I
That's right.
deposited the money in the account. You can write all the checks."
Yes. So, and the other one that was a little unusual is this involves the Hillsborough County School Board. A lot of schools, you can't drop off your kids an hour early and pick them up an hour late anymore. They have specific. You cannot drop your child off to school in the morning, you know, more than 15 minutes before school starts, because they don't want the kids hanging around the schoolyard.
Well, don't we have some of the schools that have pre and after school care, though?
Some do.
But if you're not in that,
if you're not in a school that
district,
has that,
or
you know,
you didn't pick that one, you're in trouble.
Yeah, they're apparently very strict about dropping your kids off too early and picking them up too late. You know?
What's going to be the resolution of something like that, though? Are you going to say, well, the only thing you do is try to be fair when you're doing a credit check, or try to? What could a woman do? Can she in advance say to a potential employer, I want to state ahead of time, you're going to see a bad credit report, you may see this, you may see that, but I want this job and I'll prove myself, or something?
You would hope that that would be the case. You know, we were hearing from a lot of agencies who try to find women jobs, and they were telling us that this is a problem.
What about
you know, even the surprising thing was like call centers, you know, people answering phones.
You want a subscription to Time Magazine or Sports Illustrated or something?
This is not a retail job where they might be shoplifting, you know. It's
well, but they have things.
Sometimes they're taking credit card numbers. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's one, and there's things in the office. What about barriers to equal pay? Did you see any of that in someone who already could get employed, doesn't have these other problems?
We did not hear a lot about equal pay, because we were dealing with agencies who are dealing, you know, with women who are unemployed, and just trying to find them that first job, who have been out of work for quite a while. Now, with the county, we have looked at some of because besides these workshops, we have also been sending little letters to the county commission every once in a while when we think something has come up. And the first couple of meetings, we heard from a lot of county staff about how the county operates, and we did hear some rumblings from some women that the county pay scales weren't fair. And we did have some raw data, but it's very difficult to make a case when you have just raw numbers. So the county is going to be spending about $500,000 doing a salary study. So we requested from the county that when they do that study, they include gender, that they break it out by gender, so that someone can actually look at it and see whether the county itself is discriminating.
Is this only going to be a full-time staff? Because that's another dilemma with the county, because the county has a big workforce of people who are not considered full-time. I don't know that they call them part-time, but they're called temporary. And they don't get benefits.
Yes.
But they continue to be employed there.
I don't know whether that study is going to be including that. But you know, it was very hard to look at the raw data, because you have police and firemen who are mainly male who make more money than a secretary. So it's very difficult, if you're not a professional, to look at just the raw numbers and see if there's.
There was a way that they weighed if you were a fireman versus or a police officer versus a teacher. But there were areas
teachers
of,
are not, you know,
but
the
if
county.
But what I'm saying is, yeah, that's not a county one, but or a secretary.
Yeah.
I remember that they created some criteria. Maybe Helen Gordon Davis knows that when they did the equity study
I'm sure
for the state,
yeah.
so that they could say this has this level of responsibility, regardless, in this much money or lives or whatever it affects, and they were able to do that. Now you did the one on housing, right?
That's correct.
Tell me about LISC.
It stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation. We're a national nonprofit founded 24 years by the Ford Foundation. The Ford Foundation did a study to find out how can we improve distressed neighborhoods, which are primarily made up of women. And when they were doing this study, they determined that just pouring money into it was not the answer. So all the federal programs where they just keep putting money into it, that did not solve the problem. So they looked around to see what was solving the problem. And a key component was when the community itself has ownership of its community and they make decisions themselves, not the county making the decision that you need a daycare center, but the community saying we need a daycare center and where we need it, and then working with a group like LISC to determine, okay, if you need it in this region, what is the best place along the bus lines, along, you know, Main Street, a commercial corridor.
Next to a school.
Next to a school, et cetera. So they actually founded LISC with a $10 million grant, and we are now in 35 cities across the United States, all the major cities, Indiana, New York, Indianapolis, New York City, Boston, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And in the state of Florida, we're in Jacksonville, West Palm Beach, Miami, and the newest program for LISC is Tampa Bay area. So we cover both Hillsborough County and Pinellas County. And we did attend the affordable housing seminar, but we do participate in a lot of other issues. For instance, last year, many of our funders are groups that are very concerned about the health of women and children. Allegheny Franciscan Foundation is our largest donor, and they wanted us to work with groups to find out how can we increase their financial base. And one of the issues when we started meeting with people was they are very concerned about their credit. And yet they were very surprised that the first thing you have to do to clean up your credit is to get a job, even if it's a part-time job, even if it's just a couple hours a week.
But you can't find a job because you have that credit.
You can, even if it's a job at McDonald's, there are places that will hire you. So unemployed women need to start at the beginning, and that's a very difficult concept when you have children and you're trying to make ends meet. But if you can just understand that you start at the beginning and you work your way up, and you start meeting with credit counselors. Household Finance gave the Tampa Bay area $100,000 specifically to work with people on their credit, because this is such a big issue. All the major banks, Citigroup has just kicked off a huge financial literacy program.
It's about time they did all that. They share an enormous responsibility for our credit problems. They offered us us, the people. You know, I get a credit card offer. How many do you get in a day?
Probably every day.
Every day,
yes.
at least one, perhaps three. And then you have the whole last 10 years of that. And then you combine that with the idea that we should all mortgage our homes for 125% of value. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Take all this credit so I can get your 20% a month, and then I'm dumping you out, and now you have no credit and no job. I mean, I really, truly think that they have been irresponsible, and Dante could have been right putting them down there in the bottom.
Well, it's interesting that you
Pardon me,
feel
I'm
that
sorry.
way.
I do.
because-
They
well,
should feel I mean,
Okay.
I really do.
Let's take
As a
a different look.
businesswoman, I do.
Let's take a different look at this, because I think that it takes a village to solve problems, and I think a lot of people are realizing that. But those problems are not all based on banking, because when the three of us grew up and we went through school, we learned percentages. So when somebody said that if you go to cash your check here and they're going to take 25% of your check away just for the pleasure of cashing your check, you would say that's absurd. I'm not, I cash a check for $4 and you're going to take $1 away. I cash a check for $100, you're going to take $25 away. That's too expensive. I'm not going to you. And you find a different place to cash your check. I think that our school system also has some blame, because if people truly understood that those credit cards at 25% interest means that, for every $100, $25, in interest payments that you're making.
Right.
So
So
the
that
school
all the
system
shopping
failed.
that you did to get something
Right.
25% off,
You've
you've lost
is
a
correct.
second. And then if you don't pay now, which I really don't think that our governments should have allowed this, we not only have the percentage, the interest rate, but now they're also allowed to put down $25 late fee.
All the fees
I mean,
are
the fees are
outrageous.
just
Okay.
unbelievable.
So we all agree that people need to understand financial literacy, but our parents also taught us this.
Yes.
Let me tell you that the number one thing I can tell women to do is shop at the stores that have layaway. Our parents used to deal with Christmas, not in holidays, Hanukkah, all of those holidays, all the gift giving, not through credit cards, but through layaway. And that's how
And the Christmas
people-
Club.
And the Christmas
Yes.
club.
We
Yes.
all remember the,
So,
the
there
dollar
are-
a week Christmas Club.
There are many other ways to manage your money or lack of money, rather than saying it's all it's all because of banks. That's just not true. It's
Well-
because parents have not educated people. It's because school systems have not educated. And the good news is now you have all these different groups that are working together to try and do increased financial education. Look at Enterprise Village just starting up to teach children how money works. I mean, these are very
Well,
good
banks,
things.
remember banks used to come to school.
Yes.
I don't know where you were raised, but in New York,
You used to put money, a few
They had
pennies
the
in your
bankers
savings
came.
account. And you had a savings account at school. You could
and you
put
had
money
your
in.
little
Yeah,
book, and
yes.
you went in there, and I mean,
Yes.
we were in elementary school.
Yes.
And they are still very, very much a part of the school system.
Of course, they gave away little things then too.
Yes.
They
Well,
gave
now
away
it
your
takes
little banks.
parents doing the same thing. When I was growing up, my parents opened up a savings account for me, and I had to put the money in the savings account, learn how to draw out of the savings account, and understand that 10% of that went into a fund that I wasn't allowed to touch. You had money that you could access, and then you had part that you couldn't. So I think there's a lot of players here.
Well, tell me
But,
about this.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
just
Please interrupt me,
interrupt
Susan.
once.
Please.
Because I hate to dump everything back on the school system, because that is one of the problems with our education system, because the legislature says, oh, teach them this, teach them
Right,
bicycle
right,
safety, teach them, financial management. I think even if you taught them in schools about credit cards, you're still inundated with marketing constantly.
True.
And they constantly raise your credit limit. So, you start out with a $500 credit limit, and then suddenly you've got 1,000 and 2,000, and it's human nature more with plus marketing that will make people spend more money.
Well,
The whole
it's all aimed at that.
it's all aimed at us
wanting
spending
you to
more
have
and more and more. So maybe a little. I agree. Parents should be teaching their children, but it's really a tough sell when you got all these credit card companies and ads on TV, and they're giving you credit and they're sending you applications in the mail. And it's so easy.
The moral of the story is just say no. It's like drugs.
Oh,
It
right.
is
And,
addictive. That credit card is addictive.
and that
just
campaign-
say no.
Diana, and you know how good that campaign worked, right? We have no more drugs in our country,
right.
correct? Okay,
right.
now let's go back to this LISC, because I know that we have a couple of pictures we want to show of the Hope Center and a few other places. Would you describe some of the other things that you're doing
Yes.
here in Tampa or wherever?
Here in Tampa, we started an awareness campaign for the working poor to remind them that there's earned income tax credit. So if they're doing their taxes by themselves, they could potentially get $12,000 back in cash just by making sure that they check that earned income tax credit box. Now, if you go to a professional to do your taxes, most likely you already got that money. And if you do not have a job, most likely you already got that money. But many people who are doing their taxes by themselves do not know that single men can get earned income tax credit, single women
Well, just
can
think
get
of the name of that.
Yes.
Earned income tax.
Credit. You
What
get,
is that?
You get
You
a,
see what
a little
what is
extra
that?
money if you work.
How to get a little extra money tax break.
Right.
Yes.
That would be a good name for that.
Yes.
But earned income
Income
tax, that
You
sounds like
earn
something
the money and they will,
really very complicated, and I
Complicated.
think the government should consider renaming that, because we might know what it meant.
Like extra tax refund.
Yeah, like extra tax refund, right?
but only if you work.
you earned this
That's why
income tax.
it's
I know
earned
it's earned.
income tax.
The working poor's extra money back.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
if
go
you're earning less than $30,000, I encourage you, and you're doing your own taxes, I encourage you to contact the IRS. They're in the phone book, in the front part of the phone book, and research this. If you have not been checking that box, you potentially have $12,000 in the bank. Now, what should
Can
you
you
do
go
with
backwards?
that $12,000?
Let me ask you a question now. If you
Yes,
found
you
that
can go
out
back
today,
3
3
years.
years.
you could go back 3
Go
years
back
and
3 years.
reclaim that.
That is correct.
Oh, that would be so wonderful.
So-
What
The
a
question
great
is,
bonus.
though, most of the working poor probably take their taxes to somebody in the neighborhood to do them for them. Are they, are those people well qualified enough to know
I
how
think
to
that
do this?
anyone who is doing taxes usually is pretty well educated on it. The IRS has been trying to get the word out desperately, but if you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you're doing your taxes by yourself, then you aren't as aware. So I would
I
encourage.
bet somebody's calling about this earned thing. Hold on just a minute here. You're on Speak Up.
Yeah, hello, ladies. How are you today?
Okay.
Yeah, listen, I was just listening to your comments and conversation on teaching the youngsters, how to save and spend money.
Yes.
I am a middle management IT professional, and I get so many youngsters out of, for example, a technical school in IT systems that have no idea and think that coming into this field right off the bat upon graduation they're going to make $45,000 because they see people that live above their means. Everything is credit, and reminds me of the commercial that at the end, the guy smiles and he says, "I'm in debt up to my eyebrows," and they have no idea, no concept of what money is, how to save it, how to spend it.
Right. So you're confirming that you've seen this in the workplace. Thank you very much for calling us.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. My only comment with that, having 3 IT sons, is that they should be paid a lot more money than that because they make them work 100 hours a week. And there are some laws that say that IT people should make a lot of money because of that they work them 80 hours a week anyway. But I guess his point's well taken, that people have unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
They think they're going to get a job and buy a boat and a few other things and go buy a house right away or be able to afford all these things.
Well, number one.
Did you tell me
very
before the show about this housing situation, about 50% versus, would you please restate that, Diana? Because
Yes. Well, we are having a crisis in affordable housing in the whole United States. Over 40 million people spend 60% of their income on housing, which it used to be.
And you mean the mortgage and the electrical bill, or just the mortgage?
Just the mortgage, or
and,
just the
and
rent.
we were always advised, or banks didn't approve you if you tried to go over 25 or 30%. They combined your income.
That's correct.
Multiplied it by 3, and that's the most you could buy a house for. Or
well, the price
right?
of lots, the price of housing is outrageous. It's very difficult to build a house in Hillsborough County or Pinellas County for less than $100,000. It can be done, but oftentimes they don't have a garage. If you don't have a garage, then you're parking on the front yard, or it's a wood house versus a concrete house. And
how does your organization help women to get affordable housing, or how does it actually work, this getting the community together? And
we're looking at, in the city of Tampa, we work with 3 community development corporations. In Hillsborough County, we work with 2. So University Area, Palm River, Central City in Tampa, which is Tampa Heights, West Tampa, and East Tampa. And for instance, we just did a $500,000 revolving loan so that a community group can build affordable houses, infill houses in East Tampa. And
where would that be? 22nd Street area?
yes,
Or is that the area?
Yes, that's the area.
From north of Hillsborough?
Hillsborough Avenue all the way south to I-4, all the way over to I-75 and to 56th Street. And this is the East Tampa Business Group, and they will be able to do homes and then pre-qualify people to get into those homes. But it means that it's a two-way street. Number one, people have to have a job. Number 2, they have to put aside some savings, which is a very difficult thing to do, is to build up a savings account. Oftentimes we can get that savings matched through an IDA program, which is federal program.
IDA, what is that?
It's an individual account that is set up where you put your money into this account, and it can only be used to do a startup business, to buy a home, or to go back to school. And this is a special account that the federal government has set up. But
so you don't pay taxes on that money if you put it in a special fund? Is that like an IRA kind of situation?
It's very similar to an IRA, and many of the local banks are helping us match that money. So if people save $1,000, it can be doubled. And then the county has a system where they're using federal government money to help lower the price of the house through down payment assistance. Hillsborough County has that, the city of Tampa has that. It starts at $500 that they will kick in, and sometimes it's even more than that. But those.
So you're the bank. The LISC is the bank.
No, we're actually what we call the gap funding. So if there's a gap where the bank won't fund it, because the bank is very concerned about building in these distressed neighborhoods. It's very high risk. So the bank would not loan this group $500,000 to build these houses, because how can you prove that you're going to sell them in this low-income area? So in that case, we provide the gap. Now, after a couple years, this person, this group, this community development corporation will have a good reputation, and any bank in town will loan them the money. And we won't have to do the gap funding because they will have established a good reputation.
That's really good. We're going to go to a PSA, and then we're coming right back and talk some more about how women can afford some housing in town.
Alpha 85, we're in a unit closer, being routed to a signal for with injuries, possible fatality.
One of the worst things you can hear is a call come over the radio to a traffic crash involving serious injury or death.
Going to the scene of a bad crash is one of the toughest parts of our job.
All too often, it is teenagers who are injured or killed. Somebody's child. The real tragedy is how many could have been saved if they had just buckled up.
My deputies know we must enforce our safety belt laws to save lives.
Buckle up, Florida. Click it or ticket.
Yesterday while walking home, I saw some kid on Newberry Road. He pulled a pistol from his bag and tossed it in the river below.
If you see a kid with a gun, tell someone right away. Let your one voice be heard.
One voice was heard.
My great students, a friend of all of ours. You can always count.
Sometimes it's important for kids to keep quiet. But if you keep quiet about a kid who talks about hurting someone with a gun, some kid could be quiet forever. Don't wait till it's too late. Tell a grown-up right away. For a free book about what to do, write to McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652.
If you're stopped by a state trooper while driving, pull off the road when it is safe to do so. Stay in the vehicle and wait for the trooper to approach you. Keep your hands in plain view at all times. Wait for the trooper to ask for your license and other documents before retrieving them. If you receive a citation, ask about your options and make sure you understand the trooper's instructions. Your Florida Highway Patrol, working to keep you safe on our highways.
Welcome back to Speak Up Presents. Today we're talking about the status of women in the Tampa Hillsborough area, and we have Susan Leisner, who's the chair of the County Commission on the Status of Women, Hillsborough County Commission on the Status of Women, and Diana Kyle, who's the director of the Local Initiatives Support Corporation. Diana, you were telling us what else the LISC does besides helping with the gap between the funding for affordable housing.
Right. Our goal is to help community development corporations become sustainable. So, for instance, the CDC of Tampa, which is Chloe Coney, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, she is doing a groundbreaking on a building that's an employment center on Hillsborough Avenue. The public's welcome to come. The mayor will be there. And this is an employment center that is going to house 100 new jobs, where people can walk or ride their bicycle to this employment center to get a job at a working wage. We helped fund that building so that we could increase the number of jobs in the communities.
So you're not just talking about residential.
That's correct.
You're talking about some commercial buildings too.
In fact, commercial is a #1 priority because that is usually what the distressed neighborhoods need the most. So oftentimes we're talking about jobs with such as credit card call center jobs, such as grocery
Supermarket?
stores.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I noticed that we
Radio
don't get
Shack.
as many of the grocery stores or the banks in the low-end areas. Is that right?
Yes, and
Susan?
that's the problem with the check cashing services.
That's how they can.
That's how they can, attract their customers. If you notice, you don't have the major banks going into those areas, and it would certainly be a benefit if Bank of America and some of the other bigger banks would open some branches in those, distressed areas. So
Well, actually, that's happening. Bank of America has never left East Tampa. They're right on Hillsborough Avenue, right next door to this building that
And
Chloe
right
Coney
across
is-
from some of the cash checking places. The problem is people who don't have checking accounts. They got
there
overdrawn.
are many people do not have checking
Is this right?
accounts.
They got overdrawn. They bounced a few
But
checks, and
everybody
then they just
can
lost their
open
account.
up a new account now. All of the partners that we work with, the banking partners, have special accounts that you can open up, even if you have bad credit. So you need to go to your bank or your credit union and ask about it if you have bad credit, because they do have special accounts that you can open up. And I think that you'll see some credit unions opening up in these distressed neighborhoods
and
because
I know
they see it as
some
a
of the
market.
banks do have programs like Bank of Tampa. If you were an employer and your people don't have checking accounts, it's much more advantageous for you to do direct deposit. If your people don't have checking accounts, Bank of Tampa will offer you a deal where they will deposit those checks and give the employees an ATM card. At least that's better than having them go cash their check and be charged a fee.
And I
in
have
that
to
way,
tell-
that's also a debit card, you mean?
It's like a debit card,
Like
yeah,
a debit card, so
yeah.
they can at least
Yeah.
appear
Yes.
at
Direct deposit is a very misunderstood concept. If you work, your check should be direct deposited. It is the most fabulous thing. You'll get your income tax back in 3 days if you direct deposit your check. There's so many benefits of direct depositing your check, and I would encourage anybody who's working to please direct deposit their check. It is a very wise financial move.
You were talking to me about a homeless center. I think we have a shot of it. We ran it before, called Hope. Is that something that
It's the
that
Center
your
for
group?
Sophie Sampson Center for Hope, and it's 88 units of housing. 1/3 of it is for females. Now, this is no families, this is individuals, but we're trying to complete the circle so that they have a place to live for 2 years very inexpensively.
This is just for women.
No, 1/3 of it's for women
okay.
and 2/3 for men, no children.
We're running a shot of Soup
Yes.
Kitchen right now.
And, you know, everybody has to go back to school, get their GED. They have to participate in cleaning, participate at the soup kitchen, and they have to go out and look for employment.
How many people can stay there?
88.
Where is it?
This particular one is in Pinellas County, but Hillsborough County wants to do something very similar to this.
And this is unlike like Metropolitan Ministries, which really caters to
Families.
This
You
is
need
for,
a little bit of everything.
right.
That's correct.
Because I think at that time when Metropolitan Ministries went in, it was because so many people were catering to non-families. It would just be all a men's house or all a woman's house or something. Now, did you say the problem with homelessness, how big is it among women?
It's now 60% of the homeless population are women with children.
It's
So
just
it used to be,
unbelievable.
And
we
that's
would
in
think
Tampa.
of, yeah,
That's not a
in Tampa.
national number. That's in Tampa.
That we would think of the homeless problem as a men's problem, and it's no longer a men's
We're
problem.
way higher in Tampa with women being homeless than other cities, or is this the way it is
I
nationally?
think it's a national trend that you have more and more women and families that are homeless.
Why? Do we know why?
You know,
is that too
I
big a
think I would
question?
assume part of it is the low wage scale we have here. You know that people can't make that much money. But I really don't know what the roots of it are. Why it's Tampa? Why?
Wow.
Well, certainly if the county and city decides to increase the livable wage, that will be a big help because clerical staff for Hillsborough County is below poverty level. That is what they're paying.
And
so
the county itself is paying below
that's
poverty
correct.
level?
Yeah, poverty
so it's
level
below,
is
what, 8?
22,500 or so is poverty level, and there
How
are
much is
many
that an hour,
jobs
do you
in
know?
Hillsborough
about
County that are making
$10 an hour. That's like $10, $11 an hour.
Yeah,
10.
and
That's
many
for,
workers
wait,
make-
poverty level, that's for family.
Well, wait a minute. I
That's
have
not an individual poverty level, 22.5.
I can't tell you.
Wait a minute. I had a sheet here. If I can
You'll
find
find
it.
it.
I
I'll
can
find
tell
it.
when
you
I'm
that
sa- yeah.
33% of the people living in our distressed neighborhoods are below the poverty level. And, you know, that's right here in Hillsborough County. I can also tell you that out of that, 51% of them do not have a high school degree, which is an enormous. I mean, that means that when the jobs opened up at the airport, the security jobs, they could not get a job. It was required that you had a GED to get that really good job at the airport. If you could get transportation out there, if the bus line went to the airport so that you could, you know, to get that. And then one of the things that LIST does is we help fund daycare centers in these neighborhoods. But with daycare centers, oftentimes they close at, you know, 5 minutes after 6. So if you can't
And
get
it's $5 a minute after that or
You-
something, I've heard
exactly,
that. Some
right.
outrageous amount of money,
Yeah.
right?
So we have to have more individual households certified to do daycare center where they only take care of like 3 to 5 children at one time. Pinellas County was very successful at that, but we have a lot of people with children who are doing shift work. Coca-Cola, soda companies that are in, I mean, the Hillsborough
call
County
centers
is the
too,
largest
also.
manufacturing business in the state of Florida.
What is?
Hillsborough County. We bottle beer, we bottle sodas, we bottle pharmaceuticals, cigars, and all of those have 3 shifts. But the buses aren't running 3 shifts, and the daycare centers are not running 3 shifts. So that is very problematic for women in the workplace. And you're not going to solve the daycare issue if you just open up more daycares. It's got to be a certification issue within individual homes so the children can sleep there.
Right.
Wow.
I have some income
Seems
limits.
like
These
they're
are
probably
for
just-
getting subsidies for housing, and it's for one person. It's $28,000 a year. So
One person, 28,000 is not
to
considered
qualify
poverty.
for some of these housing programs.
Oh, okay.
And 6-person, it goes to $54,000 a year.
Okay.
But
Now, I had the
could-
woman on from, that was called Hope too, I believe.
Hope 6 programs?
No, not a Hope 6 program, but the program where they're trying to get through the living wage in Hillsborough County,
Yes.
who showed the $12 living wage, but she was talking about a family of 4. Now, they couldn't do anything else. She used a average apartment rent,
Right.
2-bedroom in Hillsborough County of $700-800, which
Right.
sounded about right.
Well, we had some of those same statistics.
No movies.
But
No dry
in
cleaning.
our housing workshop, we were told that it was $15 an hour is what you needed to support a standard 2-bedroom apartment in Tampa,
Hillsborough,
which
okay.
is about $730 a month, and they came up with a $15 a month figure. And I think
An
that was
hour.
from the City of Tampa Housing Department, I believe.
Well, this might have been the county.
You know,
and
so
that-
I
the
mean,
city
those
might
numbers.
have been a little higher.
But when you think about people, you know, Walmart just released some figures last week. Their average hourly wage is $9. I think it's $9.04 nationally, and they're one of the country's largest employers. And you can see where the problem is, and the people don't have a realistic idea of how much money it takes to support themselves in an apartment.
The killer is that if we don't give people enough money on an hourly basis, that in the end, all of us as taxpayers are going to be paying
That's right, because
for
we're
the
being-
problem, even if
yes.
you have no compassion and you're just being from your left side of your brain or whatever, you know, just logical about the whole
the
thing.
comparison here is that
you're
minimum
gonna-
wage is still at $4.75.
4?
I thought it was
Five-
$5.15.
$5.15,
I think.
$5.15.
Okay.
And-
That's the minimum wage.
Right.
minimum.
So Walmart's doing great. If they're paying $9, they're
Right.
paying more
They
money than the
certainly are.
county is
They
for
certainly
many
are.
of their entry-level positions. And you know,
That wasn't an entry level, that was like their average hourly wage, which you would think if you worked there long enough, you would somehow get up to a livable, you know, a living wage. But
Hey, you think that's bad? Go to one of these spas around here or the hotels where the biggest raise they ever get is 4 or 5 cents an hour.
Well, I
After a
know
year or 2 years.
a lot of people who are working at Walmart, and it's the families, and they're doing very well, you know. But I think that that's, again, 2 people working. So
Two
that
people,
does not
yes.
help the single
I'm never
female
sure. Are
issue.
you? Do you ever have this idea that once we got a little bit closer, you know, remember when we were 59 cents on a
Yes.
dollar women?
Now we're 74
And I had
cents.
that little pin that said 59 cents. Didn't we all get one
Yes.
of those from
Yes.
National Organization for Women? And now it's 74 cents?
Yes, I believe the last I heard was 74
But as
cents.
soon as we started going up for 59 cents, the men's salaries came down.
I don't think
This is what I really think happened because we didn't always have to have 2 people working.
Now we have to have 2
And
people
now we
working.
have to have 2 people working.
Yes.
And had they just made the women equal, men could have taken off for a while and raised children, and it just would have needed one parent to be out working. It wouldn't matter which one it would be. But now when you have the family split up like they are and the marriage breakups and so forth, the women are making that low end still.
They're still making the low end. And
the
they're-
low end, and they're doing more of the supporting because
there are fewer marriages and more divorces, and so more women are left supporting the family now.
right. And I mean, the statistics I've seen is that 3 years out from a divorce, very often the man isn't contributing to the children's upkeep. Once it gets to be about 3 years out or 4, the odds of the number of them that actually do maintain their child support payments goes off, and it's less and less, and maybe they get in another relationship and have more children or what have you, but that's a difficult thing. So the woman's salary has to come up.
Well, another issue I think that's interesting about the quality of life, Chicago's doing a lot of studies on this, and one of the things comes down to educating women too, because when you get married and you start to have children, you know, you still are your own destiny, and you do know that you are responsible if you're having children. So you need to learn about controlling how many children you're going to have so that you can always afford to maintain those children.
Yeah, but
Because
that's
you
been-
might be doing it by yourself. And I think that the more that women know that they can be in control of their destiny. And I've found in many cases with both boys and girls at a young age, if they have a dream, they will make that dream come true. And so if they have a dream that they want to be successful in this world, and what that means is no more than 2 children and getting that high school degree or going to college, then they can make that dream come true. But they've got to be educated.
The only direct correlation between the number of children a woman will have, the decreasing number, is the level of her education.
That's right.
If a woman's a college graduate, the odds are way high that she's not going to have as many kids as if she was a high school dropout. She's just not going to know better.
Well,
I mean, that's the problem. But that's the problem across the board. Keeping people in schools very, very critical. But I don't want to forget, and we've only got 10, 15 minutes left of the program, that there were 2 more topics.
Yes.
And if we could move to them, we'll come back to housing since it's an issue anyway. But the health care and the child care, which you were touching on, the child care issue.
We haven't had our workshops yet. Those will be scheduled later on this year. But from what we hear in every workshop, everything is tied together. It's housing, it's jobs, it's child care, and it's health care.
Well, and transportation, she just mentioned. If you don't have buses running around the clock.
Buses, and we just seem to be in this mode where the budgets are being cut across the board in all these areas. Medicaid, as of July, just was cut in the state of Florida. And Medicaid, of course, affects mostly women, poor, the elderly, and it was just cut. The housing budget's been cut, so.
The drug benefits isn't a whole lot better now that they've done what they've done.
A good example,
This is really something. I mean, you have to move your parents in with you. You honestly do. They can't afford to do it without you.
Yes, there are senior housing. The waiting list for senior housing in Tampa right now is 2 years for the affordable housing, for the subsidized housing.
Goodness.
We're doing a lot of elderly housing at LIS, funding elderly.
In Hillsborough County?
Yes.
Where?
And, well, we have 143 units that a group that I'm not privy at this time to tell you exactly where, that is going to be doing both a combination of elderly as well as some handicapped individuals. And then in St. Pete, we're doing 144 units of senior housing. And in Clearwater, we're doing 8 units of senior housing.
Doesn't seem like very much, does it?
Well,
it's I know, when you talk about small units like that,
there's a lot of people in Clearwater who
if
are
you were
older.
one of the 8 that needed it, you
I'd
would be very
be
happy
thrilled,
that
but
it
if
was
I was
there.
the 9th one, I'd be really upset that you didn't build
There
one
will be more. There will
Yeah.
be more. And part of this is within the city of Clearwater, we need to work with the planning department versus the housing department so that regulations can help us to increase the density of those things that are needed. Because sometimes you just follow the rules, and rules were meant to be modified based on need in certain neighborhoods. And so that was one of the challenges. That project actually started out as 14 units. So we've got some work to do, but that's what LIST does. We go in and we talk to government about what's not working in the community and how can they help us make it work better, because
Make some exceptions, you mean, in zoning
elderly
and-
housing was needed, and they didn't want us to go up 2 stories. And in a dense area, you have to go up. You can't go out. And so there's a lot of, as you know, the city of Tampa is redoing their housing. And, what is needed? In many cases, it's not construction loan money to build the houses, it's deeper subsidies to get these women into the house. Because if you're paying $700 on rent and you have a job, you can buy a house right now. I know you can. Now, you might have to buckle down and set aside your money, and you might need to work hard. But if you are paying $700 on rent, I know you can do this as a female, and I challenge every female out there who wants their own home to do that, because it is possible.
Well, we moved back over into housing because we were talking about health care.
However, let me tell
Because
you,
there's a
healthcare's-
relationship,
there
I see
is,
that.
absolutely.
But tell me, we do have a program that is a pretty model program in Hillsborough County, the indigent healthcare program that we have. Are there still people that are falling through the cracks with that? I mean, outside of the elderly even, just that
there's
if you've got 60% homeless women, And we're talking about women on this show.
I mean, there are the indigent
problem,
who get
it's
health
not like
care.
we're not sensitive
They're
to
the
the problem
indigent-
for men,
yeah.
but
there's a whole bunch, a group that falls through the cracks because if you qualify, there are people who qualify for indigent health care. Then there are the uninsured who probably don't qualify for that.
right.
And so they can't, get into
And
the
then
emergency
turn
room.
40 or something, and you or 45 or 50, and try to get insurance.
Yes,
that-
even
where
well-to-do
somebody
people,
says, wait a
yes.
second, 18 years ago you had a car
yeah.
accident. We're not going to cover you for that or this or whatever.
There are people
It's now
who are well
500 a
off who
month,
cannot
right.
get health insurance.
I
They
know.
cannot, even if they pay $2,000 a month, they cannot get it.
Right, they can only get catastrophic,
Yeah,
at
catastrophic,
the
yes.
at the best.
So, that's a problem that spans all through the
So in
population.
Hillsborough County, what are you hearing mostly about? Is it that we're not covering them in the indigent health care, and it's the children and the women, or what do you?
There
I
are
mean,
some,
not having
there are
had
some
the
good county
workshop
clinics.
already.
There are some good county clinics that
Right.
you can go to, and I think they are covering part of the people. But I think the uninsured is a bigger problem than the very poor can get adequate health care, and the well-off can, and I think then there's a whole group in the middle.
And of
that's
course,
not
if you
doing
could
it.
get employment and there weren't the barriers to
Yeah.
employment you were talking about, you could probably get in a group.
Yeah.
Although, in Hillsborough County, does anybody know what it's not every employer that provides insurance in Hillsborough County.
Yeah.
Do you know what the percentages are? Because I think it was pretty big. As I remember my days at the chamber when I was on the board of governors of the chamber, which is long ago, it wasn't everybody that had insurance. I mean, it
No.
was...
No,
probably the greater number of companies in recent years can't even afford it.
No, because they will. A lot of companies will give you insurance, the employed, but if the family insurance, you have to pay the whole amount.
Right.
So you get covered, but your wife and children still don't get covered, or your children
have
or
to
your
pay
husband. You still have to
additionally.
pay the additional. So it's and that's another deduction from your paycheck when you're only making $9 an hour. It's unaffordable. It's just
True
unaffordable.
enough.
So I can tell you more when we have our workshop on that.
when we talk about the status of women and the fact that you're advising the county commission on this, it didn't occur to me until I just went to the Florida website for the Florida Commission on Women, how many bills are in the Senate and the House that affect directly women. Not that they don't affect men, again, because the same things that affect us affect men too, but they seem to be more identified as women's issues.
Well, we have advised the county commission and requested that they support some bills. That is part of our mission, and so we wrote them a letter and requested they support the ERA in their legislative agenda, which they did. And we sent them a letter
Some
about.
places are smart like that.
I think they also supported the Sadowski, signing of the Sadowski
Yes,
bill.
we sent them a letter about cutting the housing trust fund. We've sent
Right.
them
And I would like to personally thank Jeb Bush for signing it this week, because that is a major issue. That is a program that provides housing to low-income people throughout the state of Florida, especially women. So this was major. This was a major piece of legislation that we were all very, very worried about.
So,
But there are a number of other kinds of laws out
yes,
there right
it's when if something comes up that one of our members knows about, because we don't know about everything that's going on in Tallahassee, though we have a staff member who tries to tell us. But if one of our members knows of a bill that she thinks we should support, then she can bring it up at the commission meeting and we can vote, to ask the county to support it. That's all we can do is ask the
I
county
just
to
quickly
support it.
looked down this website of the Florida Commission on the Status of Women, and I see there's a bill on health care, child welfare, administration of medication to children, child support. I don't know what these are. I mean, I didn't click on them. Elder abuse and neglect, family court laws, family court efficiency, county delinquency prevention, breast cancer treatment. There's some kind of ordinance in the House right now about that. Sex abuse reporting and evidence collection. There's so many things that are really affecting women. Endometriosis Awareness Month is
So
a
are you
bill.
telling all the women who are listening to make sure they register to vote?
I
And
think
we
that
hope that
That's
they
good.
will vote.
That is a great suggestion.
because-
this is the year to vote.
Yes, This is the
if
year
this
to
is
vote.
the year to like prove that we could actually get something like instead of 29%. What did we have at the last presidential election? 20, some in the 20s, under 30% of the registered voters voted in the last election, and in the state of Florida, 37 votes made the difference between who the president is and who it could have been, and
women's legislation.
And these
women's
kinds of issues
legislation.
are
The people you
just
elect are
significant.
affecting your daily life.
Yes.
You should pay
I
attention.
know, and everybody's not paying attention.
That's right.
You know.
Well,
Pay
if you
attention.
How do we get everybody to pay attention? We have these
register to vote, number one.
Okay, tomorrow.
Number
Everybody
one.
who's not
Yes.
Register to
must
vote.
go to vote.
Yes.
Right. Let's go
And
do
then
that.
understand that your vote does count. We know that here
We
in
know
Florida.
that in Florida, yes.
We
Yeah.
know that. Your
Right.
vote does count.
Right.
Now, if you care about things that Louise just listed, then not only register to vote, but read about it. You know, find out who the candidates are. Become an educated voter. And vote on things that affect you and your
Well,
family.
that's a good almost ending to this program. We're coming to a close, and I just wanted to say, did we miss something that you wanted to make sure that viewers heard about with regard to the status of women, housing, or
Well,
otherwise?
what we're learning is that almost everything that affects the poor in this country mostly affects women. They are, make up women and children make up the largest percentage of that group. So if you are a woman and you want to bring people out of poverty, and help women get ahead, then, you've got to realize this.
If you're a woman or somebody who loves a woman.
Yes.
Yes. If you love your mother. Yes. Then think
If you ever
about-
loved your mother.
That's right, because we are all going to get older. We need housing for
Did you
elderly.
notice that we were going to get
Yes,
older?
we're
Well,
getting
congratulations!
older,
I'm delighted to hear
Yes.
that I am, because otherwise I wouldn't be here.
And
I
how
couldn't-
old do you have to be to vote in this country? For all those people out there who aren't
18.
sure,
18.
if you're
18.
18, go out there and register to vote.
Otherwise, don't call this show complaining about anything, because we don't want to hear it. I want to thank our crew. We have Mark Carbat and Mary Gerasi, and I want to thank the community producers that helped make this show possible. Camilo Kalima, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Dan Pistano, Angelo Ungato, and Jane Huang. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is public access television, where you get to make the programming and community producers get to put it on. Come back, see us again another time. Thank you.